how would you tell if it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to Jackson with Jackson, what is this, 9? Yeah, there you go. Which I'm calling Evolution Happens, but that doesn't mean evolution is true. Which has basically been the entire point of Dr. Charles Jackson's talk right now. In case you guys haven't been with us for previous episodes. Because basically he's just been going through and saying, hey, look at all this evolution. That's not evolution. Yeah. Oh, okay. Weird take, but sure. I'm here, of course, with my favorite cetacean and my favorite kind of grain, Jackson wheat. That's so. In case you guys aren't aware of the cetacean thing, I was looking at a creationist video today, and I went into the comments and found someone advocating that humans are in fact actually not only not out of Africa, they're actually out of different groups of whales from different oceans, and so different populations of humans evolved from different whales in the bodies of water closest to them. So, like, Middle Easterners are from, like, Persian Gulf cetaceans, and, like, Europeans evolved from Mediterranean dolphins or something. It's, like, the most bizarre thing that I've encountered outside of a David Peters article.
That would explain why they're capable of echolocation and I'm not.
Well, there you go. Also, I want to say, you might have heard today that a new fossil find makes the Loch Ness Monster existing plausible. No, that is not what that new paper said. In case you guys want the down low on that paper, they found a freshwater plesiosaur, which is the first of its kind, but it's also not, like, you know, the most shocking thing ever. A lot of primarily marine groups have freshwater examples, like we're just talking about dolphins, right? There are freshwater dolphins, even though you usually think about them as ocean creatures. Similarly, the Lake Baikal seal is its closest relatives are ocean seals, and it's the only freshwater seal in existence. Some seals will swim upstream a bit, but the Lake Baikal seal is the one and only freshwater seal. So this is a only freshwater plesiosaur, which, yes, weird, but no, that in no way makes the Loch Ness Monster more plausible, because 100 million years ago there was a lake plesiosaur. Like, that's not how anything works. And Jackson, remind me, did the authors of the paper say that this made the Loch Ness Monster more plausible?
Nope.
No, they didn't.
The popular magazine says that what is it, like, professors at whatever university say that Loch Ness Monster is, quote, plausible, unquote. It's like,
no.
Why did you take that one single word and put it in quotes? How very strange. It's almost like that's not what they said at all.
Oh, yeah, it's true. But oh, hey, Mackenzie Brown says, who's been a member for 5 months at Tetrapod level, thank you very much, says, sending love and drinks with a Mothra emoji, so we will take a drink for that. And then I'll tell you what I'm drinking. Okay, so, this is a little story. I was at the grocery store a few days ago. And,
dun, dun.
I know, right? Crazy. Trying to buy my meat, because I can't hunt for my meat because it's not always hunting season, and I only can get so many tags. And so even though I'm a Ceratosaurus, I'm forced to buy bulk, beef or whatever at the grocery store. Anyway, I'm in the soda aisle, and I notice that there's Coca-Cola Starlight, which is space flavored. And I thought, well, that's the nerdiest drink I've ever heard of. So I'm currently drinking rum mixed with space-flavored Coca-Cola. And in case you guys are wondering, space, apparently, according to the Coca-Cola Corporation, tastes sort of like raspberry-flavored cotton candy with cola nut extract.
I'm sold.
So, I mean, I don't encourage you to go up into space and stick your tongue out, but I guess if you did, you might get a very faint whiff of raspberry cotton candy. I don't.
Tracks.
Sure, why not, right?
I'm not a physics person, but that sounds real to me.
Yes. Jackson, what do you got?
Mountain Dew.
All right. Which brings us to the point. We are here to do some drinking game regarding Dr. Charles Jackson, Bad Jackson, as opposed to Good Jackson, who, of course, is my co-host for this show. And so, before we go with drinking rules, I do want to give out my general caveat. Guys, this is a game that is just for fun. We do have rules, but you don't have to follow them, nor do you have to follow along with alcohol. You can follow along with a soda, with tea, with water. You can just follow along in spirit. You can ignore the drinking game entirely. All of those things are fine. If you do choose to consume alcohol, though, know your own limits, drink responsibly, drink safely, and then don't play this game and then go operate heavy machinery, drive a car, pilot an airplane, I don't know, be captain of an oil tanker through the Arctic. Don't do any of these things.
Or the Suez Canal.
Or the Suez Canal, yeah. Don't try to, run a cargo ship through the Suez Canal or anything like that, right? And also, if you do decide to do any of those things, please note that I've given you a warning not to, and I am not accepting any responsibility or liability for any death, injury, dismemberment, damage to property, whether your own or anyone else, that is a result of you following along. This is an at-your-own-risk game. That being said, let's tell you how to play. Okay, so first, we drink whenever Dr. Charles Jackson says something that's so stupid we just kind of have to. That's probably our most common drink trigger. But also, if he gets something factually correct, that he's not just quoting from something else, take a drink for that too. Also, we'll take a drink if he tells a joke that doesn't land, or if he tells a story that we're pretty sure didn't happen. Sometimes we call that shower thoughts, right? Because the idea is supposed to be like he's confused his shower thoughts for real-life events. Which, happens surprisingly often with the creationists we cover here. Although, actually, Jackson, of the creationists I cover on these Tuesday night shows, you are by far getting the most intelligent of them. I hope you know that, right?
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I mean, well, look.
It's good for me, bad for everybody else.
Yeah. The other options were Raw Matt, Matt Powell, Eric Hovind, and Kent Hovind. So, personally, I think you drew the long straw on that one.
So, I feel like of those, I think Raw Matt is, the dumbest, but I think that Kent Hovind is the slimiest of them. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think Kent Hovind is the slimiest. I mean, Raw Matt and Matt Powell are both pretty slimy, but as far as I know, none of them have been convicted of domestic violence or have let a child drown on their property. So
yeah, I mean, like Matt Powell, from what the videos I've seen of him and the interactions I've had with him, he just kind of repeats the sort of general tropes because there's nothing going on between his ears. But Raw Matt, is aggressively stupid. He just makes up stuff in his head and then spews it out and declares it to be fact. It's like, where are you getting these ideas, my dude?
Yeah. All right.
What's going on?
Now, we have a super chat from Nathaniel Gray for $2 that says, Thaliacea delenda est, with the Godzilla emojis. First, we're going to drink, and then I'm going to give you my response. My response is just sick, which is Latin for yes. In other words, I agree. Which also brings us to one of our other drink triggers, which is to say, if anyone super chats with one of the kaiju emojis, of which there are 3 that you get access to by being a member, or does a membership milestone drink or chat with any of those, we will take a drink. If you are anyone, including members or not, who super chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks, or a bag of dicks, or something like that, we'll take a drink for that, but you have to be a little clever about it, because YouTube likes to censor those kind of things, and they won't go through automatically. So you gotta be a little crafty. And we do that because, AIG likes to copyright claim everything. They will copyright claim your use of a clip from them in a video in which they are using a clip from someone else via fair use. Yeah, they will copyright claim your fair use of their fair use, which is just amazing. I can't tell you how many AIG videos I've had copyright claimed that included copyright material that they were using under fair use. So, Oh, yeah, I forgot. I am doing the counter, so we should up that to 2. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for Mackenzie Brown for reminding me that I have the counter up. Also, you may occasionally hear a Godzilla sound, which Jackson probably can't hear, but it sounds a little bit like this. When you hear that sound, we take a drink, like I'm going to right now. That's a semi-random kind of thing. And I think last but not least, if our creationist here mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or its various leaders, prominent members, and activities, especially during the 1930s and 40s, we take a drink for that too. Because boy, howdy, do they like to talk about that. DM Wing, who's been a member at the tetrapod level for 2 months, thank you very much, DM Wing, sends a Godzilla and a Mothra emoji and says membership benefits, and of course, because it has the kaiju emojis, we take a drink. I also did the Godzilla sound, so now we're up to 4. We're up to 4 and we haven't even started, Jackson. Jackson, you're going to be so caffeinated after this, you're never going to go to sleep. I hope you know that.
I mean, I won't be sleeping for another, like, at least 5 hours, so that's maybe.
All right. Here we go, everybody. We were just getting to Bad Jackson's wrap-up before he goes into a Q&A session. So it's going to sound like, it might sound like he's starting to wrap up the whole thing. Don't worry, we've got over a half an hour of this crap left. Here we go.
All right, here we go. Richard Feynman said, science is a long history of learning how not to what? Fool ourselves. I think if you really, really want to believe something, it doesn't take much to convince you, and that's what...
Why don't we have a drink for projection, Jackson?
I mean, if we did, people would get drunk pretty fast, because
that's true.
One of your pictures was literally like a slideshow projecting onto Charles Jackson.
True, that was one of my thumbnails. Because it's been this whole thing. It's basically, it's just like, hello, kettle. This is pot. How you doing? Okay, but sure, Bad Jackson. Also, Chris Reese has sent a super sticker with a good job thumb up. I think that's a fox, although it might be a red panda. A little hard to tell. I'm gonna go with fox because it doesn't have the mask for red panda, so I'm gonna go with fox, and I really appreciate it. It's very cute. Thank you very much. You guys are gonna put my hypothetical kids through hypothetical college, assuming that hypothetical college tuition, like loan forgiveness stuff, doesn't happen, which it hasn't yet. So that's the most real part of you guys putting.
Do your hypothetical children fall prey to hypothetical loan sharks?
Hypothetically, they might. All right, we got to stop saying hypothetical, or it's going to start losing meaning, and like I'm going to have to pick up like a new word for it.
Fair enough.
All right, here we go.
What's happening to our evolutionist friends? I used to believe in evolution. The day I got saved, I stopped believing in evolution. It just happened to me.
Okay, so this isn't really a drink thing, but this is a common theme that I get in a lot of, I used to be an evolutionist just like you, but then I took an arrow to my brain sort of stories. It's not that it's ever like, oh, look, I believed in evolution and the old age of the earth and everything. But then I started looking into the evidence and I realized, no, common ancestry can't be true and the earth is only 6,000 years old. And then lo and behold, there was a religion that had been teaching this all along. And so after I realized that creation and the young earth must be true, then I became a Christian. That's never the order as far as I can tell, right? It's always, I convert to Christianity, which as far as this channel is concerned, that's great. Have fun with that. It's not a concern of mine. It's not my business. If you feel like Christianity is where you need to put your, religious feelings and activity and your spiritual fulfillment, then have fun with it. I'm not here to tell you not to be a Christian. However, when you then go from that to saying, oh, well, I guess science was a liar sometimes all along. It's like, well, we can see what happened there. We can see the chain of events. It's not that the evidence mattered at all to you about the science. It's that you had a prior faith commitment that made you reassess the evidence. And you came out with the science is fake news. So, it's just very obvious that that is always the order. And now, technically, in a logical sense, is that actually an argument against the truth of young earth creationism? No.
Sure.
However, it is interesting to note that as far as I can tell, no one has ever been convinced by the evidence. It's sort of like, now this is going to be digging back onto Jackson's channel, so this is an encouragement for you to go subscribe to Jackson Wheat and watch his back catalog. But Jackson, do you remember when you had that talk with Arn Ra and Mr. Intelligent Design?
Oh Lord, I've tried to wipe it from my memory, but unfortunately I can't. It's etched into my memory.
All right.
Oh, that was like 4 years ago?
It was a while, yeah. But at one point, Arn asked him a really good question. And it was, have you ever convinced anyone of anything you're saying? Anyone at all? And of course, the answer was no. And Arn's just like, doesn't that tell you something about your ideas? That, like, maybe they just don't make any sense? And it's something similar here, right? Like, if these ideas made sense, you wouldn't need people to be Christians first. You'd be able to convince non-Christians, and I'm going to add Orthodox Jews, right? Because we know that there are some Orthodox Jews that have essentially the same ideas about creation, right? People who don't have a prior commitment to Genesis is basically what I mean. A literal interpretation of Genesis, especially. You'll be able to convince people who aren't in that category that you're right. And the thing is, people in that category is a pretty small group. It's somewhere like under 10% of Jews, and I think it's well under 20% of Christians. Because if I remember correctly, like Orthodox Judaism is about 10-ish% of Jews, and of that, only a subsection are actually like young Earth creationist Orthodox Jews. So like, it's a vanishingly small part of Judaism, and it's a very small part of Christianity overall. But like, yeah. And also, Valkyrie Vision for $4.99 says, I'm trying to think of something clever but too much jazz lettuce has me sleeping. Love you. All right, well, Valkyrie Vision, I hope you have a wonderful sleep. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say that you tried, but the devil's lettuce is just blocking it. So I'll take a drink for it anyway. All right, here we go.
That was part of my Christian, spiritual, supernatural, born-again conversion.
So, I'm sorry.
How interesting.
So God came down.
Very interesting.
I love the implication that God just came down and was like, hey man, evolution's fake though. Okay. I'm sure it is. Anyway, we can't harp on that fact that he wasn't convinced by any evidence at all about science, but like it's very telling.
I just instantly, evolution fled from my belief system. I was like, wow, scared me to death.
I do have to say, like, isn't that fall to like the what is it called, the divine hiddenness problem, where like God is selectively choosing very particular people to be like, yeah, no, I made all this evolution stuff up. It's like, it's the Omphalos hypothesis. It's not real, but it's like only the least convincing people on the planet does he like bestow this knowledge upon.
Yeah, it's sort of like
how funny that would be.
Yeah, it is a curious thing where if this were to be true, yeah, it's sort of like, why isn't this revealed to people who are like, experts in the field relevant to this, right? Like,
right.
God seems to be very rarely coming down and informing like PhD evolutionary biologists that evolution is fake, though.
Mm.
And the other thing is, I'll just point this out, right? This comes from an extremely American version of Protestantism, right? So,
right.
Protestantism, standing in contrast to pretty much the rest of Christian history, has this emphasis where any Joe who is basically of like reasonably normal intelligence, so it can't be like the brain dead guy in a hospital bed after a horrible car accident. That guy is not available for this. But like anyone with a normal adult intelligence, and that's a pretty wide range, right? That includes most people who have severe mental handicaps, but maybe not to some extreme degree. Anyway, that's not important. Can read the Bible and figure out enough to get the doctrine necessary for salvation. And then when you get to the United States, where in addition to having that sort of individualistic idea of Christian theology, which is not really common throughout Christian history, which emphasized things like consensus of the church as a whole. Now, exactly who identified as a church is going to change from time and place, but still, there's an idea of like a collegiate consensus of both the clergy and the laity about what is proper Christian doctrine. So then you get this more individualistic Protestantism, but then you get to America, and that individualism takes off, and we get this idea that anyone can be led by the Holy Spirit to the proper doctrine by just reading the Bible and accepting it. Except you look around and you're like, okay, then why does everyone who does that disagree? Why are there as many theologies as there are people who believe that they can reliably get Christian doctrine on their own from the Bible with the help of the Holy Spirit? I mean, he can't be helping all of you guys. He can at most be helping a very small subsection of you. Sorry.
Although, if God is not like omnibenevolent, he's like a trickster god or something, he could be helping everyone, but like to slightly differently interpret passages.
Yeah,
Again,
he's just messing with you.
Funny.
I mean, okay, fair, but then at that point, like, you get into the situation where, like, you don't really have an epistemology that can tell you anything about anything. Because you have an omnipotent liar. You can't know anything in a situation where there's an omnipotent liar who is maliciously messing with you and your knowledge. DM Wink for $2 says, anyone with normal adult intelligence or Kent Hovind. It is funny, although I will say that by, like, sort of the standards of this idea about the perspicuity of Scripture, Kent Hovind would in fact count. Basically, you have to be able to read and follow language reasonably intelligently, and Kent Hovind can, he just often refuses to, and there's a big difference there. Anyway, we're going to hit play on this after I went on a weird discourse about how weird individualistic Christian theology ends up to it almost certainly being internally contradictory. Which maybe you guys should figure out a new way to do theology. I don't know. I'm not in charge. I'm not the Pope of American Protestantism.
Reaches for Pope hat. I'm not the Pope.
No, if I had a Pope hat, I would go for the old-fashioned like multi-layer tiara instead of like the I'm just wearing a bishop's mitre. It's like, dude, come on, you have a tiara, wear it.
There's a hat at the with a place where I work, and it's a squid that perches atop your head, and we call it the cephalopope hat.
Nice. All right, Jackson, you need to start your own cephalopod religion.
You are touched by his holy tentacles.
Just don't make your art style too Japanese, because I know where that's going to go.
Oh dear.
Yes. Andreas L for 50 sex. Thank you very much. I always appreciate getting some sex. Says, I've been trying to write about Svar i Frost the Spoken, which I have no idea if I pronounce any of that right. But unfortunately, seems to know Swedish as well. You got me, man. My knowledge of Northern Germanic languages is like near zero. So I don't even know if I pronounced any of that close to right. Sorry. But thank you for the super chat. Anyway, here we go.
Because I had no idea that could be pulled out from under me so quickly. I met the maker. I knew evolution couldn't be true.
Because you wanted to believe that? Yeah, okay.
And it scared me. Because what else isn't true? You know, but I
the moon landing.
Believe in evolution. I know what these people are thinking and why they're so inculcated, so baptized, why they put so much hope, faith, and trust in this theory.
I don't even know what it would mean to put hope or faith in evolution. Like, it's like saying, like, I put hope and faith in, like, general relativity. Like, what does that mean? Like, I expect it will operate as we've determined that it does via the scientific method. But, like, I don't think, like, my eternal soul is going to be saved by, like, a proper knowledge of Einstein's field equations. Like,
I hope is that Santa will come evolving down the chimney and leave me a new computer.
Yeah, he's just going to put, like, a new stem tetrapod under the tree, and it's going to flop around.
Also works.
Yeah,
I mentioned the new Quickictania, however the heck you pronounce it. I have no idea. In my show last Thursday. In fact, for anyone who's not aware, there's like a possible sister taxon to Tiktaalik, which went back to the water that has been discovered recently. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Also, Tab points out, how do you get baptized in evolution? Evolution is sort of like, it's like Manichaeism, right? It's not like it's an open to everyone thing. Like, there's the lower pleb level where you don't really get baptized. But once you get a PhD in a relevant field, after the snake fight and after the demonic possession ritual, they then take you into a separate chamber where there's a big pool full of primordial soup, and you get baptized in that, and now you're a full-blown upper echelon evolutionist.
I think I got a ribosome in my nose.
We're gonna hit play.
I was there. I've been there. I've thought that way, believed that way. But then when, like that Laciola guy said, you know, I was angered when I first realized evolution might not be true because everyone had always said it was.
Funny,
To be
it's exactly.
completely honest with you, I don't remember who he's referring to. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just going to take a drink for how crazy it is that that's exactly how I felt when I found out that maybe young Earth creationism wasn't true. I was a little angry.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think we've discussed this before that like people who are in young Earth creationism a lot of times will because of the anger of like, oh, I was, lied to, whatever, they will then switch completely to the opposite side and go like anti-theist,
Yeah, so...
I mean, this...
Oh, apparently also Andreas Ellis says that my pronunciation is above average, but my spelling is below when it comes to his very Germanic super chat there. So I do appreciate that I got it somewhat right. Yeah, anyway, we're going to hit play. Sorry.
Everyone always said it to me it was, and I was going for it. Well, okay, fooling
and
ourselves.
Then I asked, why are there still monkeys? And then it all fell apart.
Oh, that reminds me of that documentary where there's like these super rural people from like, I think it was like West Virginia or something, and one of them's like, because like if we evolved from monkeys, right, then why are there still monkeys? And how did a African American person evolve from a white person? We got different skin. It just don't work. And I was just like, oh my god. Oh, it's so painful. And the thing is,
a drink.
right? And the thing is, it's like, it's not this kid's fault, right? Like, because he hasn't been educated well. He's been miseducated. That's not his fault. He could have been well educated, but other people have failed him. And also, I do feel a little bit bad for doing the accent as, a stupid person, but to be fair, that was the accent he was using. So,
look, I do the Southern accent, and I have a Southern accent, so I'm perfectly... You have my permission as a Southern person to use the Southern accent.
So the reason I hesitate with it, right, is because I grew up with a pretty thick Boston accent, and I've spent years changing it because it has negative stereotypes associated with it. And so, it's normally something I don't like to do, is associate, different levels of intelligence to different accents, because it's not fair and it's not true. But on the other hand, it was reasonably accurate imitation of his actual accent, so,
So, one of the professors that I had was, like, making fun of like, anti-vaxxers or whatever, and he did a Southern accent to a room full of Louisianians.
Ooh.
Like, alright. Like I said, like, I think it's funny, and I do know a lot of, or have been acquainted with a lot of people who have Southern accents who also have very wrong ideas about, like, evolution and vaccines and climate and all that sort of stuff. So,
Okay, so on the basis of the accent itself, how was my accent?
I do it again, I guess.
No, I can't do that. That's a bridge too far. You'll just have to listen back to it.
I guess so.
All right, here we go.
And here's that part from that original we looked at the beginning of the National Geographic, talking about how there's no better or more immediate evidence supporting the Darwinian theory than this process of forced transformation among our inimical germs. Inimical germs, yes.
Yes, that is the word.
That was 2004, but look at what National Geographic said in 2010 in the letters to the editor. In a world full of shrill voices and agendas, we at National Geographic are committed to an unbiased presentation of facts.
Okay.
I don't think they're liars. I think
thanks.
They're self-deceived. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So pray. The world.
So here's. All right, first of all, I'm thirsty, so I'm going to take a drink for this being kind of a silly point. And also, we don't have to take a drink for a silly reason. we got a better reason. Scott Duke for 199 says AIG is a bindle of boners. Well, thank you very much, Scott Duke. Right when I was getting thirsty. Okay, so here's the thing. If you want to overturn the foundational aspects of a modern branch of science, anything to do with National Geographic, anything to do with National Geographic is completely useless. National Geographic is not where science is done. It is where science is reported on by non-scientists for non-scientists.
Mhm.
It is not a reliable science outlet in terms of like where you should be going to get primary sources for scientific claims. It is not where rebuttals to scientific papers are published. It's not where anyone is going to first report their findings who actually has good findings. One of the ways you can tell how good a story is likely to be in terms of science is, hey, did they publish in the peer-reviewed literature first or National Geographic first? If they publish in National Geographic first, chances are their science is crap. Because that's not how you do science. First, you submit it to peer review to see if what you're saying actually has good support. Because you might think it's good support, but if the rest of your field is like, nah, you made all these mistakes, go fix it and come back, then you are not ready to publish on that. And so, yeah, I don't care about anything that National Geographic has to say, except that sometimes its articles can spur me to then go and look at the actual paper. That happens sometimes. It's sort of like Wikipedia, right? Never use Wikipedia as your source. However, the source list for Wikipedia is great. Use that as a starting, like a jumping off point for your research. Go look at their sources. That's why I love Wikipedia, because it helps me find the sources that I need to use, and then from there I can then dive deeper. But never use it as its own source. Same thing with National Geographic. If National Geographic has a cool story, that's neat. Doesn't matter unless the source that it cites is well researched and actually supports the same thing that they're publishing. So I'm really tired of hearing about like National Geographic or Discover Magazine or something from creationists because it just doesn't matter.
The world is getting darker and darker, not just more wicked and sinful. They're going nuts. They've lost their minds. They can't think anymore. This whole science isn't a search for the truth. It's a discussion. This whole postmodernistic thinking thing.
Okay, so the reason science isn't a search for the truth with a capital T is because that thing would have to be obtainable through the scientific method, but it's not. Science can never land in a place and say, oh, we figured it out. This is the truth. Because science is an empirical thing, and empiricism is all about probabilistic things. That's why in real science papers, you get things like statistical analysis, things like p-values, right? Or r-squared values. These are statistical techniques that say, okay, given the empirical data that you collected, how likely is it that your results are the result of just random chance, or that the thing that you're studying actually has some significant effect on the data that you collected? But that your p-value is never going to hit like, oh, you're 100% certain this is the reason. So you can't ever land and say, oh, no, we figured out the final truth in science. That's why saying science is a search for the truth is silly. Now, what you could say is that science is a process of winnowing away things that are almost certainly false, so that what's left has a pretty good chance of being true. And the longer it goes on, the higher chance it has of what's left being the truth, and the more definitely false stuff gets, shoved aside. You could say that, but it's sort of like approaching a limit in math, right? There's always more to go. You're never actually going to hit that limit in any finite amount of time. Got anything for us, Jackson? Good, Jackson?
I agree.
All right, thank you very much. All right, here's Bad Jackson.
Is a ridiculous trap. It's that little train that goes around a tree and around and around and around. A discussion never goes anywhere, and it can't. And it's considered immoral to have conclusions in science now.
No.
What?
Oh my goodness.
Is that why every paper has a conclusion section?
Yeah, that's
like literally every single
bizarre.
one of them.
Okay, so also I'm seeing a whole bunch of people here who have not hit like. Thank you very much for showing up. I got I think right now I'm looking at 73 viewers, but only 38 likes. So guys, do me a favor, hit the like button. But also, yeah, conclusions are definitely a thing in science. However, they're not stated in the terms that bad Jackson wants, right? No one is saying in science, oh, we know for a fact that this is the thing that we discovered, and that's how it is, and anyone who says otherwise is a mean poo-poo head. That's something that you get from dogmatic types.
I need
like...
to edit my thesis then.
That's the kind of thing you get from people like Charles Jackson, who knows for a fact that God exists, and therefore, for some reason, that means evolution isn't true and the Earth is only 6,000 years old, even though those two things don't actually, follow from each other. That's what Jackson basically wants, is for science to act like a religion, and when it doesn't, he complains that it's acting like a religion. I mean, about that?
Oh, I think you're right. That's why they so often say, Charles Darwin saith.
Right.
It's like, who cares?
Don't saith the Darwin.
Really, yeah, it's great. Quotes from Darwin are cool and all. It's neat to have a historical context for these thoughts, but who cares? 150 years, get over it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, look, science doesn't have saints and prophets, right? Now, that's not to say that some religions don't have saints and prophets who were scientists. There are, in fact, some scientists who've been recognized as saints in various churches. But, yeah, as science goes, no, science doesn't have a guy who is authoritative on a matter. Natural philosophy, which is what science grew out of, used to have that, right? Like at one point, Aristotle was seen as, this is the guy who figured it out, and if you disagree with Aristotle, no one's going to listen to you. Well, that's cool, except that Aristotle was wrong about almost everything.
Yeah.
So then we figured that out, and we're like, oh, maybe, just maybe, picking some dude and then just believing all of his conclusions is a bad idea.
This chair is just an imperfect form of a perfect chair.
Okay, we're not doing Platonism. That's not Aristotelian logic. That's Platonism.
Oh, dang.
Come on, Jackson.
Dang it.
Killing me.
I get my Greeks mixed up.
All right. Here we go.
Evil, even.
Oh.
You can't do 1, 2, 3 conclusion. A, B, C conclusion. You can't have conclusions.
This is all just nonsense.
I don't think that that's accurate, especially since, as a person in the process of doing a thesis right now for my master's degree, I'm pretty sure I have to have a conclusion in my paper.
You definitely
I have
do.
to, have, data, because we asked a question, we formed a hypothesis, and then collect data, and then, I have to draw conclusions about said data, or else it's not considered a thesis.
Yep.
That's how that works.
Yep.
No one's come along and been like, it is immoral if you come up with a conclusion about this data set.
Jackson, your master's thesis should just be the results of your literature search compiled into a big long document.
The thing is it immoral
else.
if I'm reporting their conclusions? Is that also immoral?
Only if you agree with them.
I'll take no sides. Here's some stuff people said about this. I don't know if it's true or not, but here you go.
Yep. People have said these things. Take a look.
My Uncle Joe said this about this stuff also. His opinion.
All right, here we
Just
go.
A whole subsection that's Uncle Joe's thoughts.
Oh my goodness. All right, here we go.
Marshall University, that movie We Are Marshall? Marshall University yell at me and say that there's no such thing as conclusions. And just a few sentences before there, he actually used the word that he had concluded something.
I am going to go ahead and say that this is something that did not happen as reported. Take a drink.
And no idea what he's...
At the very... He's saying he was talking to someone, and they said there's no such thing as conclusions in science. Now, I think what might have been said is something like, hey, we can never conclude anything for 100% in science.
Sure.
That may well have happened, but what he's saying is what happened isn't what happened. I'm very confident, so that's why we took a drink for stories that didn't happen.
He talked this over with his shampoo bottle for a long time.
Yes, that shampoo bottle is now a committed young Earth creationist. Unfortunately, he's about to run out, and he's going to have to get a new one, so he's going to have to start that process all over again. It's going to be a nightmare. All right, here we go.
And I said, sir, you just told me you concluded blah, 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 and isn't telling me there's no such thing as a conclusion. A conclusion is...
I'm still just going to keep drinking for a story that didn't happen because I'm super thirsty today.
See, it just gets worse. When people have mud operating in their brains instead of gray cells, their thinking will contradict itself, like all these textbooks and things I've shown you.
The textbooks that didn't contradict themselves, but you just didn't like their definition of evolution, because once you realize that that's what evolution is, it becomes obvious that it's true. Is that what you mean, Dr. Charles Jackson? By contradicting themselves, do you just mean, I don't like the definitions that science uses?
Yes.
Yeah. And look, this is actually a pretty common thing with creationists, right? They don't like real definitions for things. They don't like the definitions that science has chosen. But here's the problem, right? Once you change those definitions, you're no longer having the argument that you think you are. And it's the same problem I have with a lot of what Sal Cordova says. Because, in case you guys don't know, Sal Cordova and I are on very good terms. You know, he's been on this channel several times. I've been on his channel several times. I pop over into his channel a lot of the time. You know, we're on good terms. However, one of the things I've said to him is that he likes to redefine evolutionary fitness in terms of things like fitness, like you went to the gym and now you're, you know, all pumped up. Oh, Andreas L asks me to read a previous post. Oh, well, first he says, "Sorry for Vulcan are et budgeter," which I'm pretty sure is what he was trying to type with that super chat, and I'm pretty sure I have a good indication that it is an AIG is a bag of dicks thing, because while I'm really bad at particularly Northern Germanic languages, I'm not that bad at them. So we're going to take a drink. But he also says, "Kapla," which is not a drink trigger, but I do appreciate it. In case anyone doesn't know, "Kapla" is a Klingon for success, and it is a thing that you say to wish people luck or to say goodbye in a friendly manner. Where was I?
I think to your point about redefining terms, I think that's like especially problematic with biology. It's kind of it is in the sense of, well, because to use the analogy that you've used, you have to pick a side of the road to drive on, but neither side is correct.
Yeah,
and that's very much the case with things like species. You know, it doesn't really matter whether these two populations are the same species or whether you say these two populations are the same species or different species. Neither is like objectively correct. Just
at least for related, closely related groups.
Right.
You can make the argument that, like, you know, cows and I don't know, like ants, definitely not the same species.
Well, then if you know, and it depends on how you define species, right?
Right. Yeah, there's always those weird edge cases, like, are coyotes really a different species than wolves? I mean, you can find different definitions that say yes and no.
Right, and it doesn't, either way, it doesn't matter. They shared a common ancestor in the past.
I think it's about 6 million years ago?
Maybe, I have no idea. But, like, either way, they shared a common ancestor in the past, and they're here now, and they have a certain biology and set of behaviors and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter whether you say they're the same species or these are different species, and it's really kind of silly, in my opinion, when taxonomists, like,
species fight
into fist fights. Yeah, they'll get into fist fights with each other over, like, no, this diatom is a separate species because it has an extra, you know, spinous process on like the apical side of its shell. Like, really?
How dare you say that is not very significant, Jackson?
Come on.
Them's fighting words. We need to have a duel with rapiers. Do it like somewhere in the middle between us, so like Fort Worth. Pick a day, high noon, Fort Worth, rapiers.
It's like with a phytoplankton expert.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's stuff like that, and it's like, oh my god, come on, guys.
Yeah, no,
it's stuff like that. It's like you have to pick a definition of these words, but once you've picked that definition, you have to stick with it.
Right. You can't just change it willy-nilly.
Right. You can't bounce back and forth between a bunch of definitions. You got to pick one and stick with that.
Yep. All right, here we go. We're going to get some more bad Jackson in here. Because Jackson, I don't know if you know, but we've been going for like 3/4 of an hour, and we've gone through about 4 minutes of this.
tracks.
It will.
We've done this for what, 9 episodes?
But it's super, super hard for someone to take it when that is shown and put up in front of their face. So, be ready always to give an answer to any man that asks you of a reason for the hope that is within you, in meekness and in fear. Be as wise as a serpent, but gentle as a dove. It's not easy to gently prod someone into seeing, well, your evolutionary theory...
Serpents, they're not that smart.
Here's who it really is. Luke, I am your father. You know?
That joke landed. Can we drink for it anyway because of how bad it is?
I mean, it was terrible. Yeah.
All right, we're going to drink for it anyway. I mean, technically we're not supposed to because it actually landed. But also, I do not get the Dr. Charles Jackson hello fellow nerds act. Because, like, it's not very convincing.
I feel like they just sort of laugh to, like, keep the plot moving because they're ready to leave.
Yeah, well, they have been
like,
at this for an hour and a half.
And we can get out of here.
Right?
Maybe he'll let us go.
Also, Luke, I am your father is not the actual quote. It's, no, I am your father. Luke isn't in... I mean, he says Luke in other parts of that speech, right? But not there. So, thank you for misquoting Star Wars.
You're not a real true nerd.
Right?
Bad Jackson.
Bad Jackson, no. I mean, look, I'm sure that Bad Jackson is an unironic fan of plenty of nerdy stuff, right? Like, I don't actually doubt that that's the case, but, like, dude... I don't know why you think that this church is the appropriate place for trying to flex your nerd cred. It's just weird.
It's like, Star Trek. Haha, I made a reference.
Hey guys, how many Quatlus do you want to bet that evolution is fake? None. Okay. In case you guys don't know, that's a reference to the Star Trek, the original series, The Gamesters of Triskelion, in which Captain Kirk teaches a green-haired lady what love is.
A little hard to take that kind of news,
Crazy.
you know, and it is hard for them. I know it's a shocker.
I love this implication that no one disbelieves in young Earth creationism, not for intellectual reasons or because you haven't made a compelling case, but because they're angry about it. They're just upset. That's the implication. Yeah.
World rocker for them. So pray for wisdom when you're talking with people about these things. And don't hit them over the head with everything right away. Ask a few God-guided questions. Jesus said, when you were brought before the synagogues...
I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably the editor, because we know that this is edited because the video cuts to slides. Right. So I think what happened is that the editor, because this was almost certainly edited like on VHS or something, right? Yeah. So I think the editor like forgot to actually join the splices up properly. And so whatever was then reading the edited tape didn't have any input in there, and so it just put in the barcodes. That's my guess. Not that I'm an expert on editing VHS, but it just looks like it was filmed on VHS and probably edited that way too. Which is weird, because I'm pretty sure this isn't old enough for that to be reasonable, but it might just be like, this is the tech the church has. What? Seriously.
Oh, man.
This looks like something that was shot on video, and I think that might just be because that's the tech the church has. There's nothing wrong with VHS, man. I've tried to intentionally imitate VHS a few times on this channel. It's that vintage look. Actually, someone told me that it made my avatar look more realistic. And it's like, yeah, it's because VHS looks like crap, so no matter how unrealistic the special effects are, if they're okay, it'll look more realistic if it looks like it's on VHS. That's why low-budget horror movies are always like found footage VHS films.
Magistrates and the rulers, think not what you ought to say, but in that hour, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost will teach you what you ought to say. That's how I win the debates.
Is that how you do it? Is that what they call it?
We're taking a drink for Charles Jackson wins debates. That's a story that didn't happen.
For reference, anybody who hasn't seen it, go watch his discussion with Dan Stern Cardinal. Because,
oh, absolutely. Creation Myths is the channel there.
Dr. Jackson did not win that debate.
No. He conceded
he
everything.
Did not win that one. Yes, he did.
It was amazing, honestly. Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you what, if Charles Jackson's debate performance is being put up as evidence for the existence of the Holy Spirit, I mean, that's probably one of the best arguments against the truth of Christianity I've ever encountered.
I love the someone said it. I cannot remember who it is. Maybe you know. But like one of the best arguments against Christianity is that, or against young Earth creationism, is that all of its proponents are just so like unbelievable.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
so bad at expounding these arguments.
yeah, and I mean, talk about internal contradictions. My goodness,
Yeah.
if you want to see someone be exceptionally internally inconsistent, go watch my video. Andrew Snelling is a liar. The movie. I would suggest that one because it's just the whole series altogether. It's also like now my like fourth most viewed video.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's how I talk to unbelievers. You must be not in an attitude of prayer. You must be in a state of.
Also, it's not a believers versus non-believers, guys.
Right.
The majority of theists have no problem with evolution or deep time. And when I say the majority, I mean like a big majority.
Prayer.
Isn't it there are more Christians who accept evolution than there are atheists?
Probably. I would honestly. So I mean, it's going to depend a little bit on exactly how you're defining both those terms, but overall, I would say with most reasonable definitions, the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
To be effective these days, you must have. Let's not just let the Pentecostals have the Holy Spirit, okay?
Wait, that was a joke that didn't land.
Sure. You know what, Dapper? I'm sorry. You're right. If that depends on whether or not we count the rocks as atheists.
Okay, we're not doing rock atheists here. We're not doing it. Also, I just want to point out, it sounded a lot like he said Pentecostals, and that's just weird to me.
Sound like that, yeah. The Pentecostals.
Oh,
Like, who
Pentecostals.
pronounces it that way?
Yeah, that's just...
You must have the Holy Spirit of God connecting with you when you are speaking as the oracles of God, as the Bible commands us to do. You must be an...
I want to know which Bible verse says, speak as an oracle of God. Because I'm pretty sure that that's not in there. But then again, I mean, it's been like, oh goodness. How long has it been since I've read anything from the Bible? Like 8 or 9 hours at least. So, what do I know?
intimate connection with the mind of Christ, with our Father God, like you're in your jammies, kneeling on your bed in the dark alone. You have to be an intimate connection with God. You've done this with friends who are hurting. Maybe they lost a spouse or a parent or a child, or it's a child who their dog got run over by a car. That's a big thing for a little kid.
That's a pretty big thing for most adults. People love their dogs, man.
Yeah.
Or if one of their, oh my gosh, there's a big one now. They're growing. I didn't see.
He's talking about the frogs. In case you guys don't know, it's actually pretty cute. There are a bunch of kids with some stuffed frogs, and apparently because they're extremely bored by the speech, because who wouldn't be, frogs, so that they can watch Dr. Jackson. Really adorable. All right, anyway.
Little frogs there. If one of those little frogs got torched up or run over or destroyed or lost.
Oh, there they are.
I almost lost my...
We're going to pause just a second. See, look, that is by far the best thing about this entire video, are the kids with the frogs.
It is, yeah.
I have absolutely nothing bad to say about these kids and their amazing stuffed frogs that they have all up in a row. That's awesome.
My warm winter gloves today, and that was freaking me out. What if they lost? Anyway, if someone's going through a real bad time, you don't just try to delve into the bill.
We're going to skip ahead a little bit because I don't really care about like Dr. Charles Jackson's advice on how to console someone who's had a death in their life. I mean, look, it's not an easy thing to do. I don't know if I have any advice because I know that when something like that happens to me, like there's nothing anyone can say that's just going to make it better. But on the other hand, I do appreciate, condolences. So like, I don't know. Just be honest with the person. Tell them that, you're really sorry it happened and ask if there's anything you can do. And chances are there's not going to be. Just be around in case there is. That's my only advice. So we're going to start skipping ahead a little bit until we get off of like, here's how to console people who had family members die, because I don't know what that has to do with evolution at all.
Wisdom. Bill needs the God wisdom, and that God can speak through Bill. And that's what you do when someone's really going through something. Brain where logic still exists, where there's still logic. Okay. I could do the nylon-eating bacteria.
Ooh, do it.
Let me just say there's no such thing as nylonase.
What?
we're gonna take a pretty big
What?
drink for there's no such thing as nylonase. Okay, in case you guys don't know, nylonase. So here's a quick thing, right? If a word ends in ase in like biochem, what that means is that it is an enzyme that breaks down the thing in front of the ase, right? So nylonase is an enzyme that breaks down nylon. It definitely exists because there are nylon-eating bacteria that use nylonase to break down the nylon.
I'm curious to hear what his logic is for there's no such thing as there are apparently no bacteria that hydrolyze like bonds in nylon.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Apparently,
I'm
yeah.
curious to hear
Me too.
what his reasoning is.
Also, I want to say, Chris McDaniel says, having been widowed 12 years ago, I'm sorry about that loss. That's really tough. That's actually sound advice at Dapper Dino concerning the how to help someone with a loss. And I'm glad, because, like, look, I think we've all experienced losses like that. There's not much other people can do, but, like, yeah, I mean, be there for people, and chances are they're not going to need anything from you, but be available and let them know you're available. And I find most things like, trying to use whatever you believe about the afterlife, or trying to contextualize death in the grand scheme of the universe or something like that, like, none of it actually helps. Just don't do it, in my opinion. It doesn't help. Just be there for the people you care about. That's what's going to matter at that moment. Yeah. Anyway, here we go.
It turns out it's really a combination of many enzymes.
Wait, hold on. He's saying there's no single enzyme called nylonase. It's actually like some sort of what's the term for it? Where you have a bunch of enzymes basically coming together and they're forming one single product, which is itself the nylonase.
Right? I'm sorry,
Therefore,
but a bunch of proteins
What?
come together to form, like, the Voltron protein is still a protein. The
What's the
Megazord
term
is still a
for it?
Zord. I don't
term for
remember.
it where like two proteins will like bind together.
I don't
and
remember
they-
that, though. Sorry.
Anyway, but yeah, this is a very dumb argument.
Yeah.
There's no single nylonase or no single enzyme that is itself nylonase. It's actually a collection, therefore nylonase.
I'm actually not even
exists.
sure if it's true, but even if it is true, that still it means that nylonase is very much a thing.
Yeah.
And it's a, let's see, the enzyme used, okay, the enzymes used to digest the man-made molecules became collectively known as nylonase. There's really a lot of enzymes involved. And besides, nylon is held together by peptide bonds.
Yeah?
Wait, hold on.
I'm taking a drink for... Here are a whole bunch of reasons why nylonase exists, therefore nylonase
There
doesn't
is-
exist. But yeah, let's read this.
There is scientific consensus that the capacity to synthesize nylonase was probably developed as a single-step mutation that survived because it improved the fitness of the bacteria possessing the mutation. This is seen as a good example of evolution through mutation natural selection that has been observed. It occurs in the enzymes used collectively known as nylonase. Hold on, I'm confused.
So what this says to me is not what he was saying earlier, that multiple enzymes have to come together to form a single nylonase. What this says to me is that multiple independent nylonases have been developed by different strains of bacteria. And they're all collectively just called nylonase so that you don't have to always specify exactly which nylonase you're talking about. That's what that's telling me right now, without, going to the Wikipedia page.
Okay, so... Okay.
So best case scenario, he's
So-
wrong. Worst case scenario, he's lying.
I don't even understand. Like, this is the same as the stuff about the bacteria and antibiotic resistance from earlier. Like, this is just evolution.
Yeah,
That's what
there's
this
that
is.
too. All right, guys, what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick intermission. We will be right back with things like refresh drinks, perhaps having performed various biological functions that sadly exist as a result of our not having been able to upload our consciousness into a computer yet. Holding out, fingers crossed for Singularity 2023. That's not going to. All right, anyway, we will be right back after these Musical Stylings by Beethoven, no relation. All right, and we are back. Thank you for sticking with me, most of you who did. I think we lost 9 whole people. For shame. Anyway, let's see what...
ignominious.
This is true, yes. All of you who left are ignominious. Here we go.
And bacteria have been digesting peptide bonds since the beginning of life on this planet.
Okay, but different molecules with peptide bonds require different enzymes to break. You can't just have, like, it's not like you just have the one general use peptide bond breaker, right? There was a time when nothing ate nylon. What?
Right, because it just didn't exist.
Right. But even after it existed, there was a time gap between the first nylon-eating bacteria and nylon. Like, saying, oh, look, they just broke a peptide bond. It's like saying, this isn't a new evolution. It's just a limb that exists. It's like, yeah, but now it's being used to fly, whereas it wasn't before. That's a pretty big difference, buddy.
If I remember correctly, I think part of the issue was that, like, the actual structure of the nylon makes it difficult to hydrolyze.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the bonds are all arranged. And so they had to develop, these bacteria had to have, like, very specific, or, relatively specific enzymes to be able to break it down, right? And this mutation put them on that path towards being able to break down nylon, whereas before the enzymes that were whatever peptide bonds didn't the nylon wouldn't fit in like their catalytic site or whatever. So
Yeah. All right, here we go.
The nylonase thing as proof of evolution is ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, anytime evolution happens, it's ridiculous to think that it demonstrates that evolution happens. That's just the theme of the entire episode, or the entire series. Taking a drink for it, because it's ridiculous.
only mutation and natural selection, guys. That's not evolution.
Yeah, come on, guys. I mean, look, all of evolution happens. It's just not evolution. Don't worry about it. Shh, stop talking.
There was some more things there. Science is a search for the truth, the effort to understand the world. I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, and I disagree with that guy, even if he's a Nobel laureate. Here's a fun thing about Nobel Prize or Nobel laureates. There's this thing called Nobel disease. Nobel laureates have a tendency to then go off the rails and go into crazy town with their subsequent ideas because they tend to think, oh, I'm a genius who can apply my genius to any area of study. And then they go outside their field and start doing bonkers things that don't make any sense and that just turn the rest of their career into nonsense. Someone being a Nobel laureate doesn't just grant them authority over all of the things. It's not how being a Nobel laureate works.
I thought it was like a crown. Like you are king of everything.
You
are the science
you
guy.
are you are now king of science. Congratulations. You're now like the fourth absolute monarch left in the world. There's an absolute monarch for the Vatican. It's the Pope. He's the king of the Vatican. I think like there's at least a couple like Middle Eastern countries or something that still manage to be like absolute monarchies, and then there's science, where the most recent Nobel laureate gets to be king of science. Never mind the fact that there's more than one science Nobel Prize given each year. Don't worry about that.
I just can't wait to be king.
Okay, we're not going to get copyright struck for doing Disney music.
I was going to go into beta galactidase, but that's on the. If you want to see that, that's the thing that they got these bacteria to supposedly evolve to digest a new food source, and they did it in 3 generations, and then they destroyed the gene, and they destroyed the gene for digesting beta galactidase.
No, that would be the enzyme they were using to digest, but okay, well...
Isn't it beta-galactosidase?
Probably. But it would be beta-galactose that was being eaten.
Is beta-galactid...
No, the galactase would probably be right. You know what? I don't know. I'm like on my 3rd rum and coke, so like, don't ask me, man. I can't word anymore.
Galactosidase. I don't know. Who cares?
Beta galactose, and they destroyed the gene, and the bacteria in 3 generations were able to digest it again. So they figured it evolved a new gene.
I mean, that's pretty conclusive. I don't. I'm just gonna take a.
We got rid of the gene. They were doing it again. They couldn't have had like another gene that they were doing it with or something.
I'm gonna take a drink for how obvious an example of evolution that is, coupled with the just. But who cares? Like seriously, this might be my best titled live stream ever. Evolution happens, but that doesn't mean evolution is true. It's the theme of this entire talk. It's just Charles Jackson giving example after example of evolution and then being like, but that's not evolution, finger guns.
Really, it probably modified a previous metabolic pathway or
Yes!
I wonder if there's a word for that, Dapper. I wonder if there's a word for, like, the mutation and selection of a previously existing metabolic pathway. There's got to be a word for that.
I think it's revolution. No, that's not it.
Probably has like the root of it probably has something to do with turning. I don't know. Who knows?
Voluntary. No, that's not it.
Yes. Oh dang.
Evolution. That's it. Yeah, we're taking a drink for.
I don't think that's the right word.
We're taking a drink. This is insane.
Another gene. In just a few generations, it was able to do it.
Yeah.
So then they destroyed that gene. This is the part that the books normally don't tell you. They destroyed that gene, and after 10,000 generations, it still couldn't digest beta-galactose, and so.
Hold on. So what you're saying is, so you're saying they destroyed the pathway, metabolic pathway, or the genes that
the new genes that regulate the new metabolic pathway,
and then they couldn't do it again. Like I don't. What do you want?
Yeah, like
seriously, what do you want?
So basically, what this tells me is there were two options for metabolic pathways in these bacteria that were kind of close to being able to digest this food source. One of them evolved the ability to, like one of them mutated such that it could. They destroyed that one. The other one picked up. And then when they destroyed both of them, there weren't any more relatively well pre-adapted metabolic pathways that could be easily co-opted into digesting this new food source. Like, okay, I don't know why that's a problem for evolution.
The Linsky experiment, the big change that they found was after like 55,000 generations.
Mm-hmm. And not in all the strains either.
Right, it was in one strain, and it was just a duplication with a translocation. That's all it was. Like, it wasn't like they rearranged the whole genome. No, it was just a duplication event. That was it.
That's how evolution proceeds, right? Each new change isn't generally some kind of radical departure from what came before. Like, oh, you have a thing that, like, makes your legs slightly longer. Well, guess what? That's just a slight change in the regulation of, like, your Hox genes. Like, that's not a really big thing that happens. Mm-hmm. But over time, combinations of these things, combinations of slightly modified, metabolic pathways, different arrangements of slightly different gradients of various hormones in embryology, and you add all that up, and eventually you can get significant changes. But no one evolutionary change is going to be very likely to be some kind of gigantic leap.
It's not evolution, Dapper. It's just mutation.
Oh, right. With selection.
With selection, yeah.
Right,
sorry.
right.
Leading to speciation. That's not evolution.
Yeah, that's definitely not. Erithamian says, Inshep Edglardu Cha. Yes. That is correct. We're taking a drink. Yeah. So, in case anyone doesn't know, getting some Klingon AIG or a bag of dicks kind of thing going on there. So, yeah. Let's see. Here we go.
Anyway, these things the science. The science is right there. It's just...
Yes!
It is right there.
We're going to take our first drink for Dr. Charles Jackson getting something factually correct. You're right. You're right, Bad Jackson. The science is right there.
Slamming headlong into the point and missing it anyway.
Right? My goodness.
Tell you all the pieces to the story, which is what I've tried to do with you tonight here.
Okay, what secret cabal did Dr. Jackson here infiltrate in order to get the secret part of the story they don't want you to know? Oh, was it that it was just in the publicly available paper? Is that the secret? I'm sorry that some pop sci articles not finding this section of the paper very fascinating and worthy of printing in their 4 lay audiences didn't happen. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry that happened. They didn't think that was very important. But I guarantee you, if he found out about it, it wasn't because it was a secret and he infiltrated the satanic, baptized, evolutionist conspiracy at the upper echelons of all academics. It's because it was in the publicly available paper. That means it wasn't being hidden at all by anyone. Am I completely wrong here, or is that what that probably means?
Probably right.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't hidden by anyone. Taking a drink for this is getting terrible, and I'm thirsty, and I need to cool my brain down. Because not only is this crazy and terrible, but hey, it's actually sort of muggy here in southern Arizona, which doesn't normally happen. So everything feels hotter than it is.
Welcome to Louisiana.
I know, right? It's actually supposed to be like rainy for like the next week solid. And I'm like, man, I moved to a desert for a reason. I did not move to a swamp.
Yes, and now.
What's up? Sorry.
Bring the swamp to you.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, are you secretly, like, here in Arizona, Jackson, did you like secretly board a plane and bring all the humidity with you?
No.
Not sure if I believe you. I'm gonna like check like your physical IP address later.
Pay no attention to the noises from the closet down the hallway.
Maybe we can go to question and answer period, and I'll probably not depend on my PowerPoints because I'll want to try and give very short, succinct answers. So if you ask a short question, I'll try to answer a real short answer.
It took him longer to say that than it should
Thank
have.
you, Charles. Appreciate it. Yeah. I got to take this microphone, man. You'll keep going on all night.
I've taken a drink for that. That was amazing. True. Okay.
That was a joke that definitely landed.
Yeah, it landed, but it was factually correct, so we get to drink for it.
Great stuff. Good job, too. You know how to hold an audience. I must commend you. So I hope you hold.
Oh, Lorraine Drosophila says, I might have missed it. Did Dr. Jackson explain why it's not evolution? No.
No, it
No.
just isn't.
It just isn't.
Stop asking questions, obviously.
Basically, those bacteria didn't turn into humans, so it doesn't count. It's basically what it comes down to.
Your classroom that well, too.
It
Hey, we
fills
ready for
me
questions
with,
and
like,
answers?
horror that he teaches a class of people.
Questions by you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Anything you might have read in National Geographic or Omni or Discover?
Ask the frogs if they have questions.
Anything you heard a teacher or professor say that made you go, oh my.
Oh, by the way, I do want to specify that Erechamian's Inshep Edge Thaldu is actually, it's specifically, it's not a bag of penises, it's specifically penis tumors. AIG are penis tumors. I want to make sure we get the full Klingon there. Although, Erechamian, you did forget a kahwit. It's not Edge Thaldu, it's Edge Thaldu. You gotta put that apostrophe at the end of du.
Goodness, evolution could be true. That's the question. That's the one I want you to ask. And if I
AIG is HPV. Harsh.
Thanks.
Also, I think we just buffered a little bit. I hope it's not too disruptive.
tell you I don't, you're not going to embarrass me. People try that all the time. Did you? Yes. Are you going to play?
To embarrass me.
What this is just an admission of is that Dr. Jackson has no shame.
Right.
Oh, they've got a little. This works.
What is
Oh,
happening?
and Eric Hamian points out that he forgot the at the end. I forgot that too. That's one of my least favorite rules of Klingon grammar, is that after a copula, the subject of the copula has to have at the end for like no good reason.
There's two microphones, so why don't you just?
We're gonna skip ahead a little bit.
Bad Jackson has
So-
both of them.
Yeah.
So I'll try and make my answers quick.
Okay. I ended up hearing about an article, about some fish that are coming out of the Great Lakes, around Chicago, and they seem to be thriving. And
Hey?
they were all concerned about that because they seem to be deformed and not as good at fish as what they once were.
What does that mean?
They were coming out of the Great Lakes, but they were deformed.
And they're not as good a fish as they should be.
I mean,
What?
okay.
This is,
Like people were catching them and they were deformed fish? Is that
I
what you mean? Like they were crawling out of the lakes onto land and they were deformed?
I don't know. Hopefully, Charles Jackson himself asks for clarification, because I'm confused.
So then they started cleaning up.
Yeah, Don Giuliani says, is he talking about the Asian carp? That's actually my first thought, too, is it might be the Asian carp, because they're notoriously destructive and very successful invasive species in a lot of North America's freshwater waterways. But I don't know.
They've been here since the 1800s because they were brought over by Europeans for fishing, and they are not really fished all that much anymore, and so now they just kind of eat everything.
And sometimes they
Oh,
jump into your face and knock you unconscious. They like to
that
jump
would
out of the
suck.
water. And there have been multiple instances of people being on boats, having an Asian carp jump out of the water, slam into their head so fast that they go unconscious. Like it's a thing.
Water that was coming out of the lake. And the fish started not surviving very well, and their
I thought they were
predecessors
thriving.
started to thrive better because they were better, more efficient at eating the food that was available. Had you heard of that, or is that something that you can use to kind of talk about evolution? Or
What is
Well,
happening?
that sounds like natural selection. Kind of like evolutionists will try and say that sickle cell anemia is an invention of evolution.
Completely just pivoted from that question.
Yeah, that's some almost like Matt Powell level of like pivot.
Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but here's this other thing I was
I
thinking
mean,
about
I don't
just
know.
now.
To be fair, I don't know what the guy's talking about either, so I can't really blame Bad Jackson for that. Because, like, what would I say?
Okay, you could have said the correct thing, which was, can you clarify?
Right.
Give me more details. What on earth are you talking
That's fair.
about?
Yeah, I don't know.
To help make humans immune to malaria. Again, it's the loss of information, and
That's not what it is. It is heterozygote advantage, which is nothing is lost.
We're gonna take a drink because yeah, not only is it not a lot, it's not a loss of anything. It's actually a gain of a new allele, but also creationists like to talk about information. You know what they never like to do?
What?
Define it in a way that makes it measurable so that you can actually tell if something has gained or lost information.
Oh.
Yeah, weird that.
Weird.
Yeah, curious. Guys, if you're a creationist and you're watching this, until you can give me a definition of information that allows me to actually measure the information present in two genomes such that I can tell which one has more, you're just, you might as well be farting into a microphone. It means literally nothing. It's completely useless. It's just something that you say to convince people who think you know what you're talking about. But to anyone who actually has any inkling about any of this, it's obvious that you're just making things up.
William Dembski attempted to make like a quantifiable definition of information, but he miserably failed, and nobody uses his definition as his complex specified information definition as a result. It doesn't work mathematically. It didn't work with experiments or observations. It just had no function in any relevant fields.
Weird. Yeah.
The why the malaria parasite can infect. So maybe these.
No, it can infect people with sickle cell anemia. It's just less efficient.
Right.
So your symptoms are going to be weaker, which means you have a much better chance of recovering. Because one of the things is, like, it's not... There's multiple ways to survive a disease. Like, one, being immune to the disease, so you just can't be infected. Well, I mean, that's great. That's a good way to survive a disease, I guess. But one of the best ways to survive malaria, historically, has just been managing the symptoms. Because, like most diseases, malaria is something that if it kills you, it's because the symptoms are so severe. So if you can limit them, you can survive long enough for your immune system to fight off the malaria. That's why, while now there are various things you can do to help prevent you from being infected in the first place, originally, when people like Europeans were trying to, do horrible colonizing things in the interior of Africa and having a terrible time of it, when they discovered that, the bark of what tree? Help me out, Jackson.
Have not the foggiest.
I can't remember what tree it was, but it was a tree bark that gave quinine, and quinine actually helps combat the symptoms of malaria. And so it's not like the Europeans that were, invading Africa were getting less malaria. They were just surviving it. Because they drank a whole lot of gin and tonic. Which, hey, you know what? That's one of the reasons I drink gin and tonic, just in case. You never know when you're going to get malaria. If you've been keeping up on your gin and tonics, you'll be just fine. This is not medical advice. This is not medical advice. If you're going to a malarial area, please do not think that just bringing a bunch of gin and tonic is going to help. Oh, there it is. Cinchona bark. Thank you, Tesla Ranger. I couldn't think of it. So, Tesla Ranger, I am now going to award you 3 internets. Congratulations.
Yes. Mutated fish were able to survive better in polluted water.
Okay.
But
I wonder if there's a word for that.
Yeah, well, okay, what do you call it when new environmental conditions arrive, and then certain members of a population with particular genetic a particular genotype result in a phenotype better able to survive that particular environment, and they come to predominate the population. What do you call that? Intelligent design. I figured it out. It's intelligent design.
Yes.
That's what you call that. Yep. It's definitely not evolution. I'm just gonna take a drink. You know what? I don't even care. We're just taking a drink. Like literally, these are drinks that just like. All right, Dapper, cool down a little bit.
I'm having vague memory stirrings, and I think I'm gonna go grab a book. I think I know what he's referring to. I'll be back in a sec.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I know what he's referring to.
Benthoven says the AC quote repair company, talking about intelligent design. Yeah, guys, something that exists in Arizona is a creationist air conditioning repair company. That's a thing, which kind of a surprise to me. I did not expect that to exist, but apparently it does. Now, here's the thing, guys. I'm going to hit play while Jackson is gone. And, yeah. Because, I mean, I'm not going to wait for him to figure out where his book is. It's going to take too long. So here we are. We're going to have a quick interlude of Jackson without Jackson. But not that Jackson. It's without the other Jackson. You know what I mean.
Water. The healthier, normal fish
They're not healthier if they're dying from pollution.
survive better because they're designed better.
What does that even... I'm taking a drink for designed better with no definition. Okay, we're going to talk about the conditionality of beneficial mutations and what.
I am back.
Welcome back. I'm going to talk about one thing real quick, and then we're going to jump into your thing. Okay, so...
Okay, because I'm still trying to find it, so yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. What it means to be better in terms of evolution, which, by the way, you probably shouldn't be using value judgments like that in your science. That's a no-no. But what is beneficial in terms of evolution is what helps you survive in the environment that you have encountered. Whether or not Charles Jackson would emotionally prefer those traits doesn't matter at all. He can think that the fish that survive in unpolluted rivers are quote-unquote better fish all he wants, but it doesn't matter. This is another problem that we have with a lot of creationists, is that they just define fitness as like having the traits that they emotionally care about. But science doesn't care about your emotions. Science explicitly rejects value judgments about its findings, right? Science can't tell you whether or not to drop an atomic bomb. It can tell you how to build one. Science can tell you whether or not certain, like morphotypes are going to be successful in a given environment. It can't tell you which fish is morally superior. Like that's like a nonsense question to ask science, right? So there's no such thing as better fish. There are fish that are better or worse suited to an environment. That's it. It's not an objective betterness. It's just better in the current circumstance. Jackson, do you have your thing?
This is a maybe. This may be what he's referring to, because it does concern the Great Lakes.
Okay.
It is about fish and pollution. I didn't think of it immediately, but I was kind of sitting here thinking about it for a moment, and this may be what they're referring to. There's a book by Sean B. Carroll, because I have two books by Sean Carroll right here. One is a physicist, one's a biologist.
Are they the same guy?
No.
Have you seen them in the same room together at the same time?
I cannot say yes to that question.
So then they might be the same.
It's entirely possible, yes.
Okay, but probably.
However, developmental biologist Sean Carroll wrote a book titled The Serengeti Rules, which very good, highly recommend. One of the so this book is about regulating things, whether it's genes or populations or environments. And he discusses later in the book how one of the lakes, there was a lake called Tuesday Lake, which was getting heavily polluted, and this is like up in Wisconsin. And there's this agricultural runoff and urban runoff, all this stuff, which is, full of like phosphates and other things and, nitrogen and all sorts of stuff.
Agricultural runoff is really full of phosphates and nitrogen.
Yes. and it's causing algal blooms because algae love phosphates and nitrogen.
Yes, they do, which is why they're added to fertilizer. Because plants love photosynthesizers love those things.
And so the even though they stopped, if I remember correctly, it's like even though they stopped the runoff, there was still high algae in these lakes. And part of the problem was, so you had like your herbivores, like your Daphnia, which were eating the algae, and then you had like minnows, basically, who were consuming Daphnia, and so the Daphnia were not eating a lot. There were not enough Daphnia to like consume most of this algae. So what the researchers did was they introduced, I think it's walleye to the lakes. Yes, walleye. And what the walleye did was they reduced like the eutrophic. Now, that may be what he's referring to. That's the only thing I can possibly think of. It's like along those lines.
Maybe.
I could be wrong, but that was the thing that came to my mind. So I don't know. Let's find out.
Than the mutated fish. That's all. I haven't heard of this study.
Calling it a study is generous.
But that's would be my take on it. See, I told you I was going to try and be short.
I don't know.
By the way, guys, I know there was some buffering. It should be back, hopefully.
Really, this is your chance. Yeah. Oh, come to the microphone. There you go. Take over.
Everyone
Come on
just like, I wanna
down.
leave.
Come on down. This is your chance to ask any question that's been bothering you, or you wondered, what do creationist scientists say about this or that or the other? Or what do evolutionists say about this or that or the other? I'll answer your questions.
I have a rash on my upper leg. What do you think about it?
Put some... Pray to the Holy Spirit about it, and then make sure that you curse evolution. It should be clear up in a few days.
That's good.
He's inaudible. You get closer to the microphone. You're like 2 feet away from it. What is happening?
Well, yeah, that's because of
Ah.
this evolutionary teaching. And like I said,
Repeat the question, man. No one heard the question. Okay, look. This is just like advice for anyone who's doing a recorded for the internet thing like this, where they don't have a perfect sound setup. Repeat the question. This is a good chance that either the recording or the people in the room haven't heard it. But let's see what Charles Jackson says about whatever was just asked, because I couldn't understand it.
Lyme disease is very chronic,
disease.
and it's very painful, and I mean it can cause
It's chronic and
it can
iconic.
cause kind of lupus-like symptoms, for goodness sake.
I mean, in a broad sense, yeah. I mean, it's a very long-term and very painful disease. So we'll give him a yeah. Okay, you got that right. I don't know what this has to do with evolution, but okay.
If you don't take like the antibiotics for it, right?
I mean, take your medication. Oh, I hit the wrong thing.
Organ-
Borrelia burgdorfans, isn't it?
I don't
Lyme
know.
disease.
Damage like strep throat, like streptococcus could cause. I think that somebody like that, and if it was me, I'd just tell them, I want a battery of antibiotics. I want 5 antibiotics at once.
Yes. Okay.
I don't think you get to tell your doctor what antibiotics you want to take.
I mean, you can tell your doctor. Your doctor just doesn't have to listen to you.
I mean, that's fair. Okay, fine, you got me there.
We're gonna take a drink and we're gonna talk about previous episodes. So, for those of you who haven't been here for this whole saga, Charles Jackson basically started out this talk by advocating for broad-spectrum antibiotics for all bacterial infections, which is not only horrible for you, it's also a great way to breed superbugs. It's basically bad on all directions. The reason that you sometimes need broad-spectrum antibiotics is if you have an already resistant bacterial infection, and it's a seriously dangerous infection, then it may be worth going full broad spectrum on it. But yeah, as a general rule, Dr. Charles Jackson's medical advice would be a disaster for infectious disease control. As well as just for your health, right? Because here's the thing. broad spectrum antibiotics does not distinguish between the symbiotic bacteria living in your body and the pathogenic bacteria living in your body. It will wreck your internal ecosystem of bacteria, which you depend upon. So, do you want to replace life-threatening bacterial infection, or actually not even very life-threatening? Like, very few people die of Lyme disease, right? So, do you want to replace a very unfortunate but probably survivable disease, Lyme disease, with like life-threatening gastric distress? Because that's a possibility. That's a thing that could happen. Personally, I don't think that's a good trade. But hey, I'm not your doctor. Goodness. I hate it every time Bad Jackson gives medical advice. All right, here we go.
And if they say it's illegal, I don't know, I'll go to Mexico on a vacation and have some doctors do it for me there.
If they cannot prescribe certain antibiotics in the U.S., I will cross the border and take other antibiotics. Dr. Charles Jackson.
I mean, look, I'm not going to rag on someone in the United States for going to Mexico for medical treatment because it's way, way cheaper. And if you're in a a well-developed area of Mexico, like you're probably going to be going to, it'll be perfectly adequate medical care in most cases. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, how dare you go to Mexico for medical care? No, I get it. I mean, you can, like, get your surgery plus a vacation in Mexico for often less than just the surgery would cost in the United States. So, yeah. And that's for a whole host of reasons. A lot of them involve things like Congress allowing medical companies to keep absurdly long patents on various things. That's a big part of it. Yeah.
USA.
Mm-hmm. And the reason it's often cheaper in other places, even when you actually do have to pay for it out of pocket, is because those countries don't also protect those same patents. So there's competition in there. So there's a whole bunch of things, right? Like, the United States could absolutely afford to pay for healthcare, but also it could just, not make it so that one company and one company only can sell this life-saving drug for like decades and charge whatever price they want. They could also end that. Like, it's bad on all sorts of different ends. The medical industry in the United States is there's almost as many things wrong with medicine in the United States as there are with the idea of a worldwide flood.
I think they're reluctant because they just think antibiotics are being overused, and the whole...
They don't think that. They know that because they definitely are, because the evidence says they are. We're taking a drink.
I wonder if there's like a group of bacteria called like Escape or something that are just like breeding superbugs routinely. I wonder if that's a thing.
No, I'm sure it's
probably not.
Also, I'm sure that I've never been prescribed by a doctor an antibiotic for a infection that he said was viral. And then there's me thinking, well, then what the heck is this antibiotic going to do? Because that's a thing that's definitely happened more than once. I've had a doctor be like, oh, have this antibiotic. And then the thing is, I am pretty darn sure that what he's thinking is, this guy just wants some pills. This is going to go away on its own, and there's nothing I can do about it, but here's a placebo. Except the placebo is something that breeds antibiotic resistance, which is a bad idea long term.
Mythology, which you saw, is that if we overuse antibiotics, if we
it's a mythology.
Put our best foot forward now, we'll lose it.
No.
And these bacteria will just become immune to everything we've got.
Yeah, I wonder...
Did he really suggest... Or not suggest, he just outright explicitly stated it.
Yeah.
But that's a mythology?
It's a mythology, yeah. So,
what?
Yeah, we'll take a drink for that. And then I'm going to bring up a particular thing. So there's this bacterial infection that's prominent in a lot of hospitals worldwide. It's called MRSA. Ever heard of that, Bear Jackson?
I believe maybe in the past, possibly even on this show.
So MRSA stands for multiple resistance, and then I believe it's Streptococcus aureus, which is the Streptococcus bacteria.
That's Staphylococcus.
Oh, Staphylococcus, yeah, all right. You're right, Staphylococcus, all right. Yep. My bad. Look, I'm not a bacteriologist, But anyway, the reason it's multiple resistance is because it's resistant to virtually all antibiotics. And why does it flourish in hospitals? Well, because it doesn't actually do well in the wild, right? It's not super infectious to people with a healthy immune system. But you know what a lot of people in hospitals don't have? Healthy immune systems. So it's an opportunistic parasite on humans with weakened immune systems that is almost impossible to counter with antibiotics because it's immune to virtually all of them. And so in a situation, this is the environment this bacterium finds itself in. It finds itself in an environment where antibiotics are all over the place, but so are easy to infect weak hosts. So it has specialized in basically infecting hospital patients. It's a huge... methicillin resistant, there you go. Staphylococcus aureus, yeah. It's a huge problem in hospitals. And it's resistant to a bunch of things. It's a problem. This is like the thing that Bad Jackson here says is impossible, is literally already a thing right now in the world. Right?
Yeah, once these guys develop enzymes that are basically able to like break down the oh goodness. When we started this show, I was reading a lot about these guys. Now I have not been doing it for a while. They have like their enzymes that break down the what's the ring? I can't remember what the name of the ring is now, but like it basically stops up their transpeptidases from prefixing their bacterial cell walls, and once they figure out a way, basically, genetically, to break those bonds, then they're resistant to like a whole bunch of different medicines, because a lot of our medicines are based on that same principle, like methicillin, ampicillin, penicillin, all that sort of stuff. So
yeah. So
gravy.
Yeah, it's already here. Like, I don't know what to tell Jackson here, but that ship has already sailed, buddy. We should not make it worse by going broad spectrum on everything. My goodness.
And the preposition,
beta-lactam. There we go.
Preposition, the presupposition and the posit is that if we use a lot of antibiotics a lot, then the bacteria will become immune to them all. That they can. The fact of the matter is they can't.
I'm taking another drink because, okay, are they immune to literally all? No, but there are already bacteria that are immune to so many that it's virtually impossible to treat. It's why we have to constantly invent or discover new antibiotics.
The time this started, a study I had read, and I can't recall all the exact details anymore. I'd have to go look it up again. But basically, these researchers took this bacteria and they continually evolved it to be resistant to a bunch of different antibiotics, kind of all at once. And wouldn't you know, it became resistant to all of them.
Shocker.
What about that? I know,
the thing that bugs me is, look, Charles Jackson right now is saying that a thing that currently exists, that you can just go to a hospital and find, doesn't exist. And it's something that kills people all the time right now. But who cares about them? We need to lie to people about evolution in order to get them to not believe it, even though according to people like Charles Jackson, it's not a quote-unquote salvation. Oh, I think we're back from buffering. Like I was trying to say when we started buffering, there's a reason I don't do medical pseudoscience much. It's because it really pisses me off, and that's what's happening right now. Charles Jackson is saying, oh, hey, this thing that's currently killing people right now that might kill someone yeah, don't worry about that. That's impossible. I mean...
Not okay.
Can't become immune to them all. They can't do that. And so they're holding back medicine that could help your wife.
They're really not, man. Not going full broad spectrum is not going to be the thing. I mean, okay, I can't say it's never going to be the thing, but like, not going full broad spectrum is usually the best option for your own health.
And additionally, as Dapper said, medicine the researchers who like specialize in making new types of medicine, you have to turn away in a lot of cases from like our beta-lactam antibiotics, that sort of stuff. And some things they're looking at like are like different types of peptides that you could use instead. They're looking for things that are sufficiently different from what we currently use that it is not likely to like immediately become, and the bacteria not immediately likely to become immune to it or resistant to it. So there's an entire industry of like probably a multi-billion-dollar industry of coming up with new medicines, so that bacteria don't become immediately resistant.
Look, Jackson, that's just big bacteria.
Big bacteria.
Bacteria is just fooling you.
The bacteria are in on like the antibiotics.
Look,
they're the ones making it.
They're making some sacrifices now so that they can, in the future, fool you into not taking broad spectrum antibiotics for literally everything.
I gotta respect the game, honestly.
All right, here we go.
Because they've been educated to say that we just shouldn't use antibiotics that much. Because then none of them will work anymore, because bacteria are endlessly able to continue to become immune by evolution.
I got a question. Pepper, do we still use, and correct my memory because I could be mistaking here, do we still use like the original penicillin on patients?
I mean,
it was discovered in like the 30s.
Like, do we still get it like from the moss?
I mean, like,
or the mold or whatever. Mold, yeah, it's mold. Sorry.
I mean, do we still like the same type that we used then? Are we still just prescribing it to people now?
I mean, generally, no. I don't think I've actually ever been prescribed penicillin. It's not very common because most of the pathogenic bacteria that you're going to get are already immune to penicillin.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Are you telling me that they're resistant to penicillin?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying to me
most
right now,
bacterial strains that are pathogenic in humans, as far as I know, are resistant to penicillin at this point.
But Bad Jackson just said that doesn't happen.
Well, Bad Jackson is wrong.
Actually, gonna tell me like evolution's true or something like that.
Yeah, actually, as it turns out, yeah, evolution happens to just be the thing that happens, which we've had many good examples of in this talk. Which is great.
Charles Jackson, the evolutionist.
Seriously, it was like remember back when Ranty Flat Earth was still a flat earther? He's not anymore. But he would always put out these great like observations from like telescopes and whatnot of ships like going over the horizon bottom up and like demonstrating like the exact predicted amount of drop because of the curvature of the Earth. And then he'd just be like, see, there's no curvature. And then everyone was just like, no, this is actually great evidence of curvature. Thank you, Ranty Flat Earth. You're doing a great job proving the globe.
I watched very few Flat Earth things. I really don't watch even all that much creationism anymore, but I really never like got into watching a lot of the debunk Flat Earth stuff just because it's like, oh my god, these people are bottom of the barrel.
Okay, but the thing is, it's not more plausible than young Earth creationism. Or not less plausible.
I mean, that's they're both
similar
wrong.
Similar levels of plausibility. The difference is how long we've known they're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Flat Earth has been wrong for long enough.
Basic trig.
Yeah, look, the Flat Earth has been known to be wrong for long enough that it's basically absurd to not, or to believe in the Flat Earth, right? That's how it's been thousands of years. Evolution's been less than that. So more people have still been clinging on to their previous beliefs. We do have a member message from Carrie Bronson, who's been a member for 16 months. Thank you very much. At the Amnio level, which, by the way, is the $5 level. That's a step up. Given a time machine, I feel as though AIG might sink the HMS Beagle. The question is, would they have the kindness to do so while it was docked? I think they might do it while it's out to sea, or maybe they would just assassinate Charles Darwin, right, rather than like sink the whole ship. They might go for the more surgical approach of assassinating Charles Darwin.
Interestingly, Darwin thought that he might get hanged for publishing Origin of Species. He was actually afraid of being executed for like heresy, basically.
Luckily for him, that didn't happen.
Yeah. Also for like Emma and their children, yeah.
Yeah, it would have sucked a whole lot for them. Because by all accounts, he was a devoted father and husband. So.
Immune to our medicines. And that's just not true. But this is the way we're operating now. So, yeah, I think if I was you, I'd just, antibiotics aren't going to kill her. I would just ask him to get.
Wait, he actually was asking Charles Jackson for actual medical advice for someone?
That's what it sounds like. That is what it sounds like.
Oh my god, that's horrifying.
And
no, oh my god.
Bad Jackson almost certainly has blood on his hands at this point. Like,
holy
good lord.
Crap. Oh man, no, that's okay.
Whatever that question was asking Dr. Charles Jackson, like, what should I do about, I guess, my wife regarding something about antibiotics?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I hope that this guy didn't have his wife or daughter or whatever follow this advice. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to have to hit play.
Give her multiple antibiotics. Or and it may be that the Lyme organism is...
Oh, he was talking about someone he knows who has Lyme. Got it. That's the connection. How should this person treat her Lyme disease?
Immune to one of the antibiotics or is becoming...
Olivia Williams, who's been a member for 4 months at the tetrapod level, says, oh, I got a milestone super chat with a Mothra emoji. So we take a drink for the Mothra emoji. Thank you very much, Olivia. Okay, look, guys. Because someone has doctor in front of their name, that does not make them a medical doctor. If you need medical advice, don't ask someone whose doctorate is in education. Ask someone with an MD. That's their job. And quite frankly, I mean, this has got to border on practicing medicine without a license. Also, Lorraine Drosophila says, isn't Lyme disease a parasite? I actually don't remember what the pathogenic organism is. Like, is it a eukaryote?
Sorry, Bergdorf fairy is a bacterial species of spirochete. Yes.
Spirochetes. Those guys are jerks.
A bunch of punks.
And yeah, we buffered again because that hates me today.
You were seeing immune individuals surviving and breeding and expanding in the population to a particular antibiotic, but they're, hit them with a whole bunch of antibiotics and kill them all, that are in her body. They can't all be immune to all of the antibiotics, but...
Actually, yeah, they can. They can, because that's a thing that already occurs. Not so much in Lyme disease, but my goodness.
If I remember correctly, Lyme disease is also very difficult to treat because of how rapidly the bacterium mutates. So in this case, yeah, it actually probably could.
Yeah. Do you want super Lyme? Because that's how you get super Lyme.
That's how you get lemons. But yeah, no, I mean, I do think I'm remembering correctly, but like, it really does seem like it'd be possible if you like shirk on your antibiotic regimen, because you have to take them for a while. You have to like continually take antibiotics for a while. That it would be very possible for this bacterium to become resistant. So like,
yeah. All right.
Don't listen to this man.
DM Wing for $10 says, so I shouldn't eat apricot seeds like Dr. Hovind says I should? That is correct. Now, look, if you eat an apricot seed here or there, it's not going to be a big deal. Nothing bad's going to happen to you if you have like an apricot seed a day or something. But
grow apricots out of your ears.
But apricot seeds do in fact contain a chemical, laetrile, and one of its immediate metabolites is hydrogen cyanide. Now, Kent Hovind will tell you that the enzyme you need to break down laetrile into hydrogen cyanide only exists in cancer cells. That's just not true. This is flat out factually incorrect. Your digestive system will take all the laetrile, turn all of it into hydrogen cyanide and a few other things, and then you will just have cyanide poisoning. People who eat excessive amounts of things like apricot seeds get cyanide poisoning. You will harm yourself doing that.
So,
No, do not take Kent Hovind's medical advice.
So there's a general thing about like fruits that have a big seed in the middle.
Don't eat the seed.
The fruit wants you to eat the fleshy coating.
Yep.
That's why it tastes good. The fruit or the plant, the tree or bush or whatever, does not want you to eat the seed. It wants you to pass the seed out because the seed is its progeny.
Right.
So it often has in the seed various toxic metabolites.
Yep.
Because it's like, no, don't eat my seed, please. Don't eat the fruit and then excrete the seed in fertilizer.
Yeah,
Don't eat the seed.
fruit is basically free food for animals as long as they don't digest the seed. That's like the deal.
Right. Yes.
Yes, I will make you free food. Please don't digest the seed. If you do, I will freaking kill you.
Yes.
Sort of the point. Yeah, don't eat apricot seeds. My God. Don't take medical advice from young earth creationists without a medical degree. Like, especially young earth creationists without a medical. Frankly, if your MD has a young earth creationist, I'm going to be a little bit iffy. But then again, I'm aware of very effective physicians who are young earth creationists. One that comes to mind prominently is what's that creationist neurosurgeon Republican?
Ben Carson.
Ben Carson, yeah. Ben Carson performed some world first amazing neurosurgery, right? He was an amazing neurosurgeon, and I have no intention of taking that away from him. Also completely bonkers on many things. So, I mean, you can be a young earth creationist and be a good doctor, but if you're not a medical doctor, don't be giving medical advice. Unless it's like, go see a physician and don't eat poison. That's the medical advice I'm comfortable with. Go see an actual doctor. In the meantime, don't eat poison. I feel comfortable with giving that advice. Does that seem fair, Jackson?
I think that seems fair.
Yeah, that seems fair.
That's fair to me.
There might be a portion of the population that's immune to one antibiotic.
And then when that population predominates, some of them will likely already have mutations that make them immune to the other ones. That'll just keep on going.
Or two antibiotics. Well, anyway, I'm not a medical doctor, so
You certainly
That's
are not.
factually correct. We'll take a drink. But also, we're going to start wrapping it up because we're already past the 2-hour mark. So, Jackson, what is coming up on your channel?
The next video in the Ancestors' Tale series, which is the Eye's Tale.
Those things are freaky.
Except Daubentonia. Yeah. They're not exactly the cutest little lemur boys, in my opinion.
Oh, tell that to Erica. She'll disagree with you because Erica thinks that the uglier it is, the cuter it is.
I feel the same about Tarsiers. I'm sorry.
Oh, Tarsiers?
Like, yikes.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah. A friend of mine was once bit by a tarsier.
That's an experience, all right.
It didn't break the skin. It was just a little nip.
Well, that's good.
She was holding the tarsier and she was very nervous about it, and like that translated to the tarsier who also got nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, got to be confident when you're holding a tarsier.
In fairness, I do not typically hold primates, and I would not suggest it because it's possible for them to carry diseases that they could then pass on to you. So, just in general, probably shouldn't hold primates.
Yeah, this was one of those captive ones that someone was trying to get you to take a picture of it with, like take you to get you to take a picture with the tarsier, so then you pay them. Touristy thing.
One time, however, I held a gibbon, and I'm still to this day not sure about the legality of that because they're all endangered. So anyway,
yeah, they are.
The last tale we did before this was the howler monkey's tale, and there was some really cool stuff about monkey biogeography that I think you all should watch that video about and find out, because Platyrons may not have been the only primates, or were pretty clearly not the only primates to raft to South America.
Dum dum dum. There's a ghost lineage of primates in South America. It's all gone now. Well, not really a ghost lineage because we know about them, but you know what I mean.
They've been ghosted.
Ooh, harsh.
Yep, I's Tale, so that'll be about the lemurs of Madagascar. Next Thursday, we'll continue reading Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation? And actually, Dapper, if you want to join for that, because this week's episode is going to be about the ape men. So,
ooh,
if you want to be there for that, you are definitely invited.
Yeah, remind me. Because that's actually one
be
of the
there.
Thursdays I can't, because I can't make it every Thursday. Sometimes I have
Nice.
things.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to come talk about the Ape Man, because I'm sure they won't bring up Nebraska Man or Piltdown Man.
Never. Why would
Creationists never
anyone
do
bring that up?
Exactly.
It's-
That never comes up.
Plus, it'll be like responding to the paleoanthropology of like the 70s. There's so much more known now.
Yeah, well, the late 60s. Yeah, I mean, well, okay. So this book was written in the late 60s.
Oh,
so they're
late
probably
60s,
talking
okay.
about like the early 60s. You know, in paleontology.
I mean,
which
look, it's creationist. They're always like 3 decades out of date at least. So it's probably gonna be
Yeah.
like the 40s.
if we're lucky, if it's that recent, you know.
All right. Yeah, I will try to be there for that. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Nice.
Okay, so here's what's coming up on this channel and with me generally. So tomorrow, I have 2 things coming up, neither of which are on this channel. So first, at I believe 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, I will be on Cheshire Vic's channel doing a review and discussion about the Power Rangers tabletop RPG, because I run a Let's Play that will also be airing that same day on my Top Hats Off channel at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to do a whole lot of Power Rangers tabletop RPG stuff, you know, come watch Cheshire Vic's channel tomorrow, and then Top Hats Off the next day. Or sorry, that same day, but later. Thursday is going to be the first video in the series. It's a 2-part series about Cindy Lincoln's take on stratigraphy and why it is uninformed. I'm going to say, because I'm being polite. I like Cindy. However, her take is in fact uninformed.
Not fair enough.
Severely so, but still. So that's going to be Thursday. I'm hoping that pretty soon, and we'll get this in a second. So 30th, I don't know. I think it's probably going to be a Dapper Reacts to Things episode. I'll see if I can't get Vishanti on. She's sort of my my normal Dapper Reacts to Things co-host, although sometimes I just do it solo, and that's fine too. Let's see. On the 2nd, we should be doing Kent with Bent, episode 80-something. I don't know. Then Thursday should be the second part of the Cindy Lincoln series. And then Friday, I'm hoping to actually do an out of normal upload schedule speculative evolution thing, because I've decided I'm going to try putting out speculative evolution video on a Friday rather than preempting one of my normal Thursday videos. Part of that is because they have not been performing super well, and so rather than replacing a video that I think will do better, I am just going to have it as an extra video that comes out. And that, if you're a patron or a channel member, you'll hopefully be able to see that video tomorrow morning, maybe late tonight. Depends on how fast I can get it uploaded. It should be done rendering. I have to double check to make sure the sound and everything is okay, but assuming it is, I'm going to be uploading it tonight. If it's not, I'll be uploading it probably tomorrow morning. There you go. Jackson, you have any final words? Final words of wisdom to impart? Don't eat poison, everybody. That's a bad idea. And we're out. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Benthoven, Cynically Skeptic, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Landon Knoll, Yepetis, Mabbity Babbity, McSpooks, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Veed, and Patrick Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description,
as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.